creative journey. It's easy to get lost, but don't worry, you'll lift off. Sometimes you just need a creative pep talk.
Hey, you're listening to the Creative Pep Talk podcast. I'm your host, Andy J. Pizza. When I was starting out in high school, there was nothing that I wanted more than to be cool. I'm ashamed to admit it. Even today, as a 36-year-old man, I'm still embarrassed that I desperately wanted to be cool. Why am I embarrassed? Because there's nothing less cool than wanting to be cool. That's the one way you can be sure that you will not be it. And so it makes it it's such a mind game. How do you become cooler if you're not supposed to want it? And for the first part of my creative career, I kind of had the same conundrum. Like, it felt like, as far as I could tell, that making art was just about how do you make something 1% cooler than the stuff that's already out there. But if you try too hard to do that, all of a sudden you've negated your ability and you've made it 15% less cool. You've lost all of your credibility. Like, it just felt like an impossible game to win until I started to feel like maybe making art isn't about being cool at all. If you are frustrated trying to make work that's just 1% cooler all the while, making it look like it's a breeze, making it look like you don't care if anybody likes it, I'm just doing my thing. If you're sick of playing the mind games, this episode is for you, because how do you make your work better instead of just trying to make it cooler? That's what we're going to explore on this episode. But before we do, a quick word from our beloved sponsors. This episode only has one official sponsor, but another technical sponsor of the show is you. If you are a Patreon backer of the show, we love our Patreon backers. They are the people that keep this show going and have done so for years. We really appreciate it. If you have a couple bucks to spare a month and you love Creative Pep Talk, go to patreon.com/Creative Pep Talk, and you can back the show a couple bucks an episode or $1 an episode, and it really helps. If you can't afford that, don't do that, because this show exists to help you on your creative journey, not hinder you. But if you got a few bucks to spare, and you can even front a couple extra bucks for those who don't, and you can help us keep the lights on, we really appreciate it. We see you. We appreciate you. We did a little Patreon meetup, just a handful of people, nothing crazy, on Zoom a couple weeks ago, and it was phenomenal. So good. We're going to do it again in the new year. We're going to try to make it a quarterly thing. We'll see. But go sign up so you don't miss out on that. And we really appreciate it. Patreon.com/Creative Pep Talk. There's nothing better than getting better. Accomplishing growth is extremely satisfying. And online classes with Skillshare make it possible. This is what we're talking about in this episode, is all about learning. You should be devouring Skillshare and trying to find creative strategies that up your game overnight in the way that we're talking about in this episode. Learn about illustration, design, photography, productivity, and marketing with Skillshare's short classes. You can move your creative journey forward without putting your life on hold. So go explore these classes. One I'm going to tell you about later: Reels, Shorts, and TikToks, how to tell engaging stories with your smartphone. This class looks fantastic. Looks like it's chocked full of some really interesting, juicy creative strategies like the ones we're talking about in this episode. Go check it out, Skillshare.com/Creative Pep, to get a free trial of premium membership. Thanks, Skillshare. Chapter 1, quit trying to reinvent the wheel. When I think about what helped me be more creative and make better creative work throughout my creative journey, one of the biggest obstacles that was holding me back for the longest time was the fact that I was trying to reinvent the wheel so often. This is a very hard lesson to learn because it seems completely counterintuitive, right? Like, how is it that being more creative wouldn't start with being more original? Thinking outside the box, being more innovative. Like, that's what creativity is all about. And it's exactly why I think so many folks miss this key piece. That in the first and in one of the biggest, most important creative lessons on my journey was starting with being the opposite of creative and understanding and learning from what already works. Just imagine, like, in the world of science, a scientist that's like, no, I'm not learning from anybody else. I'm going back and rediscovering gravity and soap and all these things that we've had for hundreds and thousands of years. Like, there's nothing that human would do that would be a breakthrough in our lifetime. No, the breakthroughs are going to come from those who are practicing and utilizing everything we already have working for us. That's where the breakthroughs are going to be found. So my in-laws are currently here from the UK visiting, and we went to a movie over the weekend. And when we left the theater, I asked my father-in-law what he thought of the movie. And it's a computer animated movie. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm not here to trash anything. But he said he thought the animation was really, really impressive. Very cool. The skill level to pull that off is beyond his comprehension. But otherwise, it didn't really do anything for him. Like, kind of cool, but otherwise, more or less, he was in the same place that he was when he entered the movie theater a couple hours ago. Now, when we think about creativity, if we're honest, as a culture, I feel like most of us measure artwork by how skilled it is and how cool it is. Those are the measurements I think that we kind of naturally grade artwork in. And if that was the only metrics, this is the greatest film of the highest order. But why then, if we go into a theater and we see something that is really cool and highly skilled to make, but that's it, why would we feel kind of ripped off leaving the cinema? And I would say the same goes for an art museum. If you went into an art museum and you saw something pretty cool that definitely took a lot of skill to pull off, but it left you more or less in the same place emotionally, mentally, or spiritually as when you went in, would you even say that you encountered art? If art, music, books, movies, and whatever it is you make in your creative practice is more than just something that takes skill and more than just making something cool, what is it about? What makes it art? It's not really super easy to put your finger on. It's not as obvious as, say, like a car. We all know what a car is, and we know what a car does. I remember when I was a kid, where I'm from, growing up, you had to have a favorite car. It wasn't enough to have a favorite color. You couldn't be like, I like yellow. That's not enough. We also got to know, what kind of car do you like? Now, I'm not a car person. I would have loved to just be like, I like yellow cars. No, that was not going to cut it where I was from. You had to have more than that to play the social game back in elementary school for me. And so for the longest time, I would say my go-to was a Corvette Stingray. If you don't know what a Corvette Stingray is, you are missing out. This is a pretty cool car, okay? Now, if you've seen the 1998 comedy classic Rush Hour with martial artist Jackie Chan, then you've seen a Corvette Stingray. It's the car that Chris Tucker drives in that movie. It's a pretty cool car. Now, that's all I really knew about it then, and it's pretty much all I know about it today. It's cool. But one day, I remember I'm at the store, and I see this toy Matchbox car, and it's in its little packaging, and I'm just like blown away. I'm like, holy smokes. I'm sorry, Chris Tucker. This thing is blowing your Stingray away. This is the coolest car that I have ever seen. It looked like it was from the future. Now, I instantly was like, yo, I got to figure out where, all these Matchbox cars, they always had the name on the packaging. And I'm like looking, I'm like, what is this thing called? Because I got to update my favorite car next time my friends ask me. I'm going to be telling them about this car, and it's going to be so much cooler. It's going to blow their minds, and they're going to be like, this guy knows what he's talking about. But when I looked at the name of the car, I was kind of confused because it just said something like concept car. And I didn't know what that meant. I don't know if you know what it means, but I probably asked my dad or my brother. I was like, what does it mean, concept car? What is that the name of the car? And they're like, no, it just means that that's not a real car. It's just kind of an idea of a car. It's just a cool idea for what a car could be, but it doesn't actually work. Now, I didn't know anything about cars then, still don't, but I knew enough then to say that I couldn't make this my favorite car. Like, that was not gonna cut it. This could not knock the Corvette Stingray off the top place. Why? Because it's not really a car. Why? Because for it to be a car, it has to be more than cool, right? Like, you know that, I know that, I knew that when I was 10 years old. Being a cool thing that has 4 wheels, a steering wheel, and some windows does not make it a car. It can't be your favorite car. Why? Because it can't transport you anywhere.
You're not moving.
It's not a car. If it's unable to move you, sure, you can call it cool, but if it leaves you exactly where it found you, can you really call it art at all? But back to the car world for a second. Imagine a world where someone makes the coolest concept car ever. It's so cool that all the other car designers are like, oh my gosh, this is so much cooler than what we made. We're like, they get so obsessed with this cool car. It's so cool that they quit making cars that take you places, and they just obsess over making something cooler than that concept car. And this goes on for so long that we all forget that cars were ever something that were supposed to take you anywhere at all. We forgot that cars were supposed to work. Now, I know that's ridiculous. That could never happen. That's impossible. We would never reduce a vehicle whose sole purpose was to take you somewhere to something that's just supposed to be cool, right? That couldn't happen. But imagine that it did happen. Then one day, some car designer discovers what cars were actually meant to do. If that person made a car that actually worked, if they studied the mechanics of how these things actually move people and quit trying to reinvent the wheel and instead just figured out how it worked, it wouldn't even need to be cool. It'd be an instant breakthrough. It'd be an instant hit. Now, I know that's ridiculous. That would never happen. The car world is never going to get to a place where cars don't actually work. But what about the art world that you find yourself in? Does the art in your art world actually work? And if it doesn't, is it really artwork at all? What if you quit trying to incrementally outcool the other artists, quit trying to reinvent the wheel, and instead learn the mechanics of how the art that moved you took you to the places that it took you? What if you started to reflect on and understand and master the art of how it created that explosive chemical combustion inside your head and your heart?
We are cooking with gas now.
You wouldn't even need it to be cool, which is great news for me. And maybe you too. I don't know how cool you are, but if you want to be more creative, if you want to make better creative work that works, I think it starts with quit trying to be cool and instead get really clear on the same thing that imaginary car designer had to get really clear on. And it's, what is this supposed to do?